We're live. I hope this thing's working. We have some new equipment here. Yes, so we're going live on yes, YouTube. The YouTubes. We're going live on the YouTubes. At the same time, we are taping live on my new podcast equipment. So hopefully this actually comes through. Look at that. Hey, there we are. Look at us. All right. So
Sharing this?
you can share it everywhere. We are joined today. Jake is not here, but my wife Amanda is with me. I always introduce her as Amanda, but she goes by Mandy. Mike Casey and Declan Casey. Mike Casey is a longtime friend. Just had a seminar here. Thanks for coming to Ohio and sharing your knowledge. We had a great time today. And yeah, I kind of wanted to bring both you on because, like, I think there's two separate perspectives here. Like, one is we've got two blue belts sitting here, two black belts. Our introduction, I want to ask Mike a little bit about his introduction to the art, how he got started. We had some great stories at lunch, so I'm going to make you rehash some of those. And at the same time, I really want to pick Declan's brain here because he kind of has a perspective that's very interesting to me. Because we would always say, I think, just as grown men, when we found this stuff, like, man, I wish I would have known this stuff when I was a kid.
Imagine if we started at 14.
Right, yeah, or 5, or whatever, like the Gracies. So I want to pick his brain. I've got some questions for him, just to see what that experience was like growing up with it, because my kids, I think, are having a very, similar experience, I think. And so yeah, there's a lot to uncover. So Mike, give us your 1,000-foot from the sky overview of how you got started in Gracie Jiu-Jitsu.
All right, so the whole story, short story, long story.
All of it.
Yeah, it seems like a lifetime ago now. So somewhere around, God, I want to say, when was the first UFC? What, 92?
93.
93. So yeah, the first UFC had happened already. I was doing karate at the time, and one of my friends had come in and explained what happened in the UFC in some kind of strange way that he didn't really understand. Yeah, this skinny little guy had this strange fighting style, and he was fighting this striker, and all of a sudden the guy couldn't stand, and then he couldn't punch, and before he knew it, it sounded like he was fighting a snake or something. Yeah, it was just bizarre. So I was intrigued by it, reading my black belt magazines and karate magazines like we all did back in the day. I was telling you, Joe Louis at the time was talking about chokes, and so I was becoming intrigued by chokes and what chokes could do, and it's like, we have this human off switch. I can just choke somebody and put them asleep. So it seemed kind of interesting. And then with the timing of it, I get this postcard from a Helson Gracie seminar that was coming up in Connecticut, about 2.5 hours away. So I went to the seminar and just let me check it out. And so, like I was telling you, it strikes me as funny now. Like, I go to the seminars, this purple belt in karate, and I'm in the bathroom change, not knowing what to expect. I go to the bathroom, I change. I feel like an idiot because I forgot my white belt. And no martial art goes to another martial art thing with your belt. Like, I wouldn't wear my black belt, even as a jiu-jitsu guy, to a karate seminar. I'd bring a white belt, out of respect. And I feel like a jerk, but then I say to myself, look at this jerk. I got some old man putting a black and red belt on in the bathroom. I'm not gonna look as stupid as him. This guy's got no respect. And the seminar starts, and it turns out it's Helson Gracie with the black and red belt I never met before. And so I had obviously it's kind of funny, but yeah, the seminar was great. It was 4 hours one day, 4 hours the second day, followed by another 2 hours of special advanced stuff. And it was kind of magical. I think, like most of us have been through, you're seeing stuff that, first of all, presented in a way I never saw presented. Karate was never shown this way, like such simple problem-solving techniques. Somebody does this and I do that, and oh my, it actually works. It doesn't require 20 years of practice to learn how to do it effectively. So yeah, it was pretty amazing. And I went back to my karate school to share this newfound magical knowledge, and it wasn't taken so well. I was challenged by nearly everybody in the school, and it wasn't a big deal. It was a small school, 15, 20 students most of the time, but I would be stretching, working with one friend of mine, and I would get tackled by another student. Some guy's a black belt in judo, just puts me in a headlock, and so now I gotta get out of the headlock. So it was kind of fun in a way. So I got to test the movements a little, and invariably, everything for some reason. In the 10 hours Helson showed what he felt was the most important stuff in a street fight kind of confrontation. That's every way one of these guys grabbed me, in some kind of version of a headlock or a side mount position, or a judo guy would go, what if I hold you like this? And I'm laughing, going, I can't believe it. Helson said it. The guy's a judo guy. He's gonna grab you like this. Here's what you do. And that's exactly what happened. So yeah, in 10 hours, I felt like I was formidable.
Yeah.
And I was. I didn't just feel like it. I was. I was actually defeating real stuff in under a minute. So it was kind of crazy, like just how on point this crazy Brazilian was that I met that looked like nothing. I mean, really, not the most imposing figure in the world. I mean,
No.
not at all.
No, yeah.
But insights galore. And just, you know, a presentation that was phenomenal and mesmerizing and magical. So yeah, I was hooked. 10 hours of instruction, and I felt like I was teaching for the next 8 months until the next seminar rolled around.
It's pretty cool to hear other people that came up, especially under Helson, or had as much exposure to Helson as we did coming up, how similar our stories are. I mean, everybody has their own stories, and of course, Helson has a million stories that he's told all of us, you know, a million times. But the similarities and the agreement between a lot of us is just like, man, we were so lucky to be able to learn from that guy at a time when I really believe he was the best instructor on the planet. I'm biased, of course, but he's my teacher.
I think he still is.
Yeah, yeah. Pretty remarkable. So,
Yeah.
Declan, I'm switching over to you for a minute because I think you have an interesting perspective that your dad and I never had. We didn't have the luxury of learning this stuff as a child. So what was that like? We're having technical difficulties? He's gonna fall over.
He's drinking too much.
He's gonna
If you're
fall over.
alive, noise. Don't
He's
You
going.
might need to-
Yeah, I'll reset.
We're having some technical. This is a
stand
new
by.
setup here, folks. If
You have that
if you're-
rainbow screen?
If you're not watching this live on YouTube, we're having some difficulties with the new equipment. It's just a kind of a
New guys
quick
touching the
setup here with first time we've actually set up this equipment, so we'll see if it holds up. Hopefully it does. But what was it like? You know, your dad was already well into the art by the time you were born, right? So he was fully immersed in it. What's that perspective like? What is it like growing up, learning Gracie Jiu-Jitsu from the time you can remember?
Right. Yeah. That's something I think about a decent amount. I think it kind of like changes like as you grow older, like what age you start to. I think I kind of got in at like a good age. I was like 10 or 11, I think. I think younger than that, it's sometimes just kids like it's just going to the playground. It's just, which is good too, of course. But it's crazy now. Like in some ways, I think it's a great way because I really do feel like in some ways it's part of my like genetic code. And so it's like I'm never gonna forget how to shrimp or elbow escape or bump and roll. Like I'm gonna know that on my deathbed, sort of things. But it's been a really perspective changing thing because it's like part of me. It's like I don't think about the experience of not having jujitsu, and sometimes it's hard for me to understand. Like if I'm trying to teach somebody in jujitsu, or even talking about it with my friends, I'm like I have this bias just built in that like I don't think about it all. And it's like I'm talking about the UFC. I'll watch UFC with some friends. Like, oh, he's elbow escaping wrong. And they're like, how do you know that? I'm like, well, I've been in that position before. It's like I know what I would do in that spot. I mean, I don't think I'd punch in the face anytime. I'm not a UFC fighter, but yeah, I think it's affected a lot of my life. But it's really hard for me to think about like what I would be like without jiu-jitsu because it's just hard. I know it's not a great answer.
So it's an interesting perspective. I've never thought of it like this. So now that has the storyline gone full circle is the question. So I remember talking to Horian at a luncheon, right? We discussed before.
Yeah.
And one of the questions that came up, he says it now a lot, but this is going back, man, gotta be 20 something years ago. So it's a long time before Horian's diet book came out and he's made these statements. He made this statement at a luncheon. I said to Horian, given the choice, would you choose your the jiu-jitsu or your diet? Which is more important to you? He said, wow, without a question, the diet. It's what gives me life, my health, my future. He said, you know, it's funny. People tell me all the time how jiu-jitsu's changed their life. And the dramatic change and contrast and all that stuff that we've discussed. He said, I didn't know any different. I really don't know what they're talking about. And so now it's funny, guys like us who have learned to crawl through the mud and get through the moats and get to the castle of the Gracie thing, have we now created a generation of the Jorge and Gracies, of kids who don't know life without jujitsu?
Yeah.
Has it kind of gone full circle in just one generation?
Yeah.
Never kind of thought about that before.
It is fascinating. It's hilarious because we were sitting at dinner one time and I was talking to Helson, and Helson, actually, you probably remember this. We were sitting at dinner. It's me and my wife, and my first son was just a baby. He's in the little
How old
carriage.
is he now?
He's 20.
Oof, yeah, 20 years old.
21 in November.
Yeah. So we're sitting there having dinner, and I don't know how it came. The conversation kind of switched. He looks at, he goes, "You guys are first generation Americans." He points at my son. He goes, "That's the generation that's going to beat the Brazilians." Because what he was saying is like, hey, all the best instructors are in the U.S. now. Yeah, so I don't know. It's fascinating because I actually had I did an interview with Caesar Wright, which
Okay.
you know Caesar.
Yep.
He's a good friend of ours, cousin, and he did it was an online interview a couple years ago about how Gracie Jiu-Jitsu can help young people, dealing with all things in their lives and then kind of, moving into adulthood and mostly geared towards college kids, like the value of jiu-jitsu in that regard. And so Horian was on there, and he brought his son, who's actually going into university, or at least was probably in university now. And they talked a little bit about the value of jiu-jitsu and all these things. And one of the things that I said, Horian actually came back afterwards, and I think we've discussed this before. He came back and he's like, "Hey, I really liked hearing what you said about that." And what I said was that the Gracies, that they've never experienced the life-changing, like I was a kid who didn't have any confidence. I didn't have jiu-jitsu as a kid. I didn't grow up a Gracie. It's like a different world, obviously. Yeah. And in a lot of ways, I'm glad I didn't grow up as a Gracie. But as far as jiu-jitsu is concerned, it was like a superpower. I didn't learn this stuff until I was a young man, and I didn't have confidence to fight. And then I learned like the best fighting system on the planet, and I know what that does to a man. Like that was a massive thing for me. It was a life-changing experience to just go through that whole process and not have any confidence that I could defend myself, to having the confidence to defend myself. And it just always makes me wonder, like, what is my children's perspective? Did you ever feel like you were pushed too much, or did it ever become stressful where it wasn't fun?
It definitely wasn't fun at points, but that was because when I was like 10 or like 9 or 8, my dad would just drag me to school just to be there, just like be around it. I didn't
By
like
his
that.
hair, no less.
Yeah.
That stuff I didn't like because it wasn't so much of a choice at that point. But
Yeah.
I think when I started around 10, I still wasn't like bought in, but I had more of an inclination. I was at school. I wasn't like fighting or anything like that, but I was a softer kid. I was more sensitive. Like things just got to me easier, and I realized at a certain point, I was like, I just gotta be able to like do something. I just started doing jujitsu more. I think, at least for people my age, I think you kind of don't really know why you do jujitsu at first. Like it's just kind of like when you ask like, what has jujitsu done for me? I'm like, everything. In some ways, but also like I don't really know like what it hasn't done. So it's like it's a weird question to think about. But like the one thing that sticks out to me in particular was it was all about just learning about your own self-worth. I thought because I felt bullied. I wasn't like really bullied. I had kids picking on me and stuff like that. Everybody does, but when you don't know like what you're worth and what you should be able to defend, like that's a hard thing to get past, and that took me a really long time. Like I was only really like fully sold on jiu-jitsu, I think probably 3 or 4 years into actually training, like 13, 14. By that point, it was just habit that I was there, but then I realized like, wow, like I'm getting.
Is
like,
that when you felt like it clicked?
I clicked in what way, do you mean? Just like
Like the feeling of I can actually do this. Like everybody has a different time.
So the clicking part is an interesting question, so we'll just help you decide. He keeps mentioning the age frame of 10, 11, 12. Keep in mind, he's been on the mat his entire life.
Right.
So I used to take him as a rule every Monday or Tuesday. I would take him and his sister I mean, his videos on my
Just to
YouTube
do that.
channel, they're kids, he's 2, 3, 4 years old, so he's on the mat literally his whole life. He's not calling it jujitsu yet because he's just playing.
Yeah.
Had a rope hanging, like you guys have the balls, they
Yeah.
play and they come. And so only, I think somewhere around 10 or 11, did he start to put the gi on and maybe sit in a class.
Yeah.
Or sit in what he felt was an official class. There were very much more unofficial classes happening, the kind of priming him to be comfortable in a room full of fighting adults, which most kids kind of get real freaked. I mean, so,
Now, did you have many kid students at that time?
no, none.
None.
I remember like every now and then, like I would get dragged to school and it was like some parent brought their kid, so I was just working with them for the day, not because the
Yeah.
kid wanted to, just because he didn't have anything else to do
The
that
kid
day.
wanted to
His
play.
mom dragged him to class, you know.
Yeah.
So that was the training I would get before I actually started. But I think like the actual clicking for me probably didn't happen until like later in high school. I think
Okay.
like 16, 17, training for my blue belt because I felt like physically different.
Yeah.
And that kind of triggered the background in my mind a little bit. Like I didn't realize, oh wow, an adult can't beat me. Not that I can beat an adult up, but at that point I was like, they can't hurt me. It was like, this guy's 36. Like, what's another kid my age gonna do? Like,
Right.
say something that bothers me? Like, I don't care. Like, that's kind of when it started to click. Like, oh, like, and there's another thing was like, once you realize you like can hurt someone in a way, it's like I don't want to anymore. It's like now that I know I can beat you up, like, what do I get out of that? Like,
Yeah.
Right.
that's not defending myself anymore. It's kind of proving a point to me that I can hurt you. That's
Well, I made a post on Facebook, and my wife absolutely hates it. She's like, I can't believe, I hate when people do that, so cryptic and stupid, right? So
What are you really trying to say?
Right. So, do you need some help with that? I think I can help you in a second. But, so my what did I say? I can't remember what I said now.
Your cryptic post.
It was, oh yeah, I was more dangerous as a blue belt than
Oh, yeah.
I am as a black belt. Now, you probably understand that statement.
Immediately.
Because, but a lot of people are like, ha, that's stupid, right? Of course, okay, listen, of course, I would dismantle myself as a blue belt, like, easily. Like, even at 47 years old, fighting a 23-year-old me, I'm gonna tear him apart. That's not what I meant. What I meant is that I didn't have this incredible skill, and then I got it. And it was almost like, you know, too much is given, much is required to a certain, but man, it's like, especially back when we started, it was like a freaking superpower. Nobody knew this stuff. And I knew it. I knew that I had something that nobody else had. And I'm like, man, try and mess with me now. You know what I mean? Like there was all that frustration of being asserted on and picked on as a kid. And it's like, finally, like, man, like I wasn't looking for a fight, but I wasn't backing down from one either. You know, in a weird way, it was almost like I wanted.
So what is that really speaking to? When you say I was more dangerous as a blue belt, so let's speak to
So
the
what it
people
really
who's
means is,
cryptic.
okay, so what it really means is that I was less likely to walk away from a fight. Before jiu-jitsu, I was very good with my words. I got out of pretty much all the fights by using self-deprecating humor and you name it, right? I was a good talker, still am a good talker.
No.
But I am. I talk a lot. I'm not a good talker, but I did a really good job of talking my way out of a lot of bad situations. But I walked away feeling like crap inside. Like I hated that person took that away from me. I wanted to beat them up. I wanted to have the ability to stand up for myself and beat that guy up. Now I could do the same thing and walk away feeling great.
it's different when you have the choice.
When I was a blue belt, I probably would have
So
fought.
let's dig just one level deeper. And what is that speaking to still further still? What is it really about that makes you less dangerous now? Because you are
Emotional
more
control.
dangerous. You are more dangerous now.
Physically, yes.
Is it more emotional control, or is it more just
Confidence.
self-awareness, understanding, and maybe
Yeah, a lot of that.
less
yeah.
fear?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I mean, jiu-jitsu does really give you a calm in so many situations. I was I was in a parking lot a couple years ago, and this lady, I'm walking to the parking lot. It's at a doctor's office, right? So I'm going in to see my doctor, but I'm on my phone, and she's probably, I don't know, 20, 30 feet away from me. She honks her horn. I was like, what's going on? I was just like, watch where you're going. She's just yelling. She's visibly very upset. And I look around and like, is she talking to me? Like, and my first instinct is, I don't like people yelling at me. I really, I hated it. If my mom or somebody yelled at me, instantly when I was a kid, I just like, I hated it. I just wanted to flare back, right? And so I looked at her and I stopped for a second. I mean, I wasn't anywhere near her, but it's like, ma'am, I'm so sorry. I apologize. I should have been paying attention. Thank you so much. I was on my phone, I'm distracted. I apologize. I'm very sorry. It's just like immediately, just like defanged her. It's just like, why she didn't want to see you get hurt. But you know, when you think about it, like, it had nothing to do with me. Like, she may have just found out her husband had cancer, or herself, or you never know. Like, you never know what people are going through. And sometimes, you know, the person who doesn't have a good self-confidence are going to react in a way that is very emotional. And if you respond in kind, well, now you're just creating a problem that doesn't need to be a problem. You know what I mean? So I don't know if that's, if that.
No, it does answer it. I think, you know, I find it interesting, people use the words confident.
I'm definitely much safer to train with too, I'll say that.
Well, yeah, because you
In
know.
that regard.
Yeah,
Much
you-
less dangerous in that way too, but
you're
that's
not
not what I
an
meant.
idiot.
Yeah.
You know the control of the body, you know what the body's capable of doing,
Right.
so you're respectful of that. I just see a lot of people throw around words like confidence and jujitsu will change your life and blah, 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 all these cliches. And no one ever seems to point at what exactly it is that it does. Like, so if I'm the kid coming into jujitsu, or I'm the parent saying, oh, it's gonna change my life, how? How does it change my life?
Right.
And I think with like confidence especially, confidence in what? You know, it's almost like, I could say I'm confident in crossing the street. I can cross the street confidently, not gonna buy a car because I've done it enough times to know I'm pretty good at it. I can look both ways and avoid the car.
Right.
I'm not confident my 2-year-old can do it.
Right.
I haven't done it enough yet.
Yeah.
And so I think the confidence points specifically to stuff like fears. And so standing up to somebody, for example, or your own insecurities, confident in the fact, like Declan's pointing out, that, you know what, if I stand up for myself right now, the situation is not gonna necessarily get worse. If someone wants to bully me or fight or do whatever, I'm confident after having rolled with 35-year-old men as a 16-year-old, this 16-year-old is probably not too much of a physical threat to me. So my fears don't have to lead the charge of my emotional reaction, and I can just react as I feel like reacting.
Right.
Not in hiding of my fears or afraid of what I might look like, because I'm confident that if I stand up for myself, that the situation is not gonna get worse. And I think a lot of people hide behind that, you know?
Yeah.
You've had plenty of kids. I mean, how many times a kid comes home from school telling you they were bullied, and you say, well, you know, did little Johnny hit you? No, it was a mistake. They make excuses for the kid.
Sure.
They're actually more afraid of what that kid might potentially do than what they're already doing.
Right.
And so, to me, the confidence speaks to stuff like that.
Yeah.
You know, that if I stand up for myself, that this potentially won't get worse. If it does escalate, I can handle that.
Right.
And so the confidence is knowing I can handle a potentially escalated situation, and then therefore, like you're saying, address it intellectually and
Yeah.
emotionally in a way that can actually de-escalate it and help that person with their fears and insecurities as well. It's an amazing
It is.
gift, right?
Yeah, Master Silvio Bering actually had I've listened to this one podcast maybe 4 times so far, probably more than any other podcast. And, you know, he's got this whole progressive behavior management, I forget the actual term of it, but it's fascinating. I took a class with him and, you know, he talked a lot about it. It was really interesting. And I think we discussed it a little bit. And it's like 5 steps, right? They can all happen very quickly, but it's 5 steps. First, recognize the emotion within, right? What are you feeling, right? What are they feeling, right? Step 2, the very next step, do not react based on that initial emotion, which is so powerful.
Sure.
Right? Like that's most people's reaction.
It's so common.
Yes, and you can tell it, and through the whole system. I mean, I'll spare you guys the whole deal. You can look it up online yourself. It's a great interview, but he's very adamant about, look, you have to have the self-defense. You have to have the ability behind it. You know, like you have to have the teeth in order for you to actually be confident and be able to make that. You have to have the skills behind it. Right? It's very difficult to fake that. Like I could fake certain things, but I knew I couldn't fake confidence, not in that way. But not before jiu-jitsu. I knew I couldn't, because I was trembling. I was terrified. You know what I mean? Like, oh, I'm gonna get my butt kicked. Like, this is gonna suck really bad. What do I do? And yeah, so I don't know. That was my perspective. But I always wonder, because my kids, you know.
Well, it was funny listening to Declan talk because his experience is very similar to our kids. I mean, just kind of been around it. Yeah,
Sorry,
it's not in a good
I'm
spot.
we'll move it closer. There we go.
Sorry.
That's better. Your voice
Yeah.
sounds beautiful.
Should we leave?
No.
But with Zaven, our oldest, he started, I don't know, seven
Same way.
maybe,
For actual classes.
for actual classes, but was always around it. But really, I mean, didn't take it super seriously until later. He would help teach our kids' classes a lot. But I think growing up with it always being just part of your life, I don't think you necessarily find that same confidence at the same stage as opposed to you as an adult that sought it out more for that reason to learn to defend yourself, or kids that come in because they're getting bullied, they're, you know, having a hard time with kids at school. So they're coming here for that reason. They're learning jujitsu for the confidence.
Yeah.
I think it's different. It was interesting hearing Declan say, because I never really thought about that before, that, I mean, I definitely have seen a change in some of the kids that have come through our
Oh, yeah.
academy that have definitely become way more confident kids, but they sought it out. It
Yeah.
wasn't just
Right.
something they grew up in.
And kind of what you said, like you mentioned, like you kind of gotta have the teeth.
Yeah.
For it kind of felt for me the opposite. Like I had the teeth after getting my orange belt, getting my yellow at a certain level, of course.
Sure.
But like at a certain point, it was kind of the same idea. Like if someone's bothering me, I could deal with it. But like, what then? Like I
Yeah.
dealt with it.
Right.
You're not an issue anymore, but I'm still bothered. So it's like you have to have the teeth to deal with like the emotional side of things. How I felt for it. I don't think I ever physically needed jujitsu. I mean, I'm not a small person now, but like I think fighting was never something. I've never been a fighter in that sense. I'm not picking fights at bars, not stirring problems up, but like I needed the step before that, and I needed to do jujitsu and get the teeth before I could realize there's something else. Like you got to deal with the background.
We can start today if you want. There's a bar right there.
Put it to the test.
Let's try it out. I'm kidding. Totally kidding.
Yeah, but it's funny, you bring up a good point. I know in my place, we try to talk to the kids about that. So when I have kids, I don't have a big kids program. And mostly, we have even the young teens, because some have experience with bullying and some don't. And so the ones that do, it's easy to address that and start to give them the empowerment of all the things we're talking about. The ones that don't, I really try to continually sell them. Like when he says stuff, "Oh, I'm beating up a 35-year-old. He kind of feels that because we reinforce that, have some fun with it a little bit. Like when a 12 or a 13-year-old is actually starting to manhandle a little bit a 26-year-old, like we really encourage and show that, man, you're gonna become a superhero. You stay here from 14 to 17, you're gonna become a superhero.
Yeah.
And you tell the parents that. So there is an educational process that's important, I think, to let the kids know not only what to expect, but what it feels like and looks like while it's happening.
Yeah.
You know, this is an adult that's just trying to do this to you. What if a kid in school? And so the constant education is important, I think, to keep them excited, but also to let them know what powers they're developing, because otherwise they have nothing to compare it to.
Yeah.
It's tricky. And for adults too, I guess, at some
And
point.
you know, there's so many other valuable lessons that go along with it too, because it is a difficult skill to develop, and every kid will say pop at a different time. Like I've trained kids who, you know, mom and dad are kind of, I think he's really getting it. No, give him time. Give him time. And sometimes it's a couple years. The next thing you know, boom, a light switch turns on, and that kid is just, you
They
know,
suck it up.
now the ball game at the end of the class isn't the game. Jiu-jitsu's the game.
Right.
Like now they're good at it. And if you give those kids long enough time, and you know, I don't know. I hear a lot of parents. I don't know if it's just that they're not interested anymore, or I think you actually said it the other day. Maybe we were having a conversation like, look, it's not the kid who's quitting.
No, the parents quit.
It's the parents who quit. And it's like, man, you don't
And
want
it's
to let
always
them
the
quit.
parents. Let me ask you this, in your experience, is that parent typically a student of jiu-jitsu themselves, or is the non-student the parent?
Typically the non-student. Now, I have had a number of, obviously we do have a number of students who actually have their children in as students. What I think the difference with the parents who are training jiu-jitsu versus the ones that's not, is that they have a little bit more better understanding of the ups and downs.
Right.
right? And so sometimes they'll, okay, we're gonna take a break and do baseball for a little bit, but we're gonna come back. You know, I don't, as the coach, I don't like that as much. I'd rather, you know, keep them consistent, even if it's just once a week. But I get it. I understand it, and I think they understand it a little bit too. But I don't know. I think by and large, I think, wouldn't you agree? I think most of
Yeah.
the parents that have kids in
I
jiu-jitsu,
think they understand that need to not push it.
not push too
hard.
much. Yeah, because again, it's like, you know, it's not,
Encouragement's one
it's
thing.
not always easy, is it?
Right. No, it's like that with, I think, with the parents that I've seen. It's probably like that with everything too. It's not just jujitsu.
Sure.
It's you want
Yeah.
your kid to do well, and you want to push them. But I think for me, a big part, he was pretty hands off in a lot of ways. I
Yeah.
think like I kind of just had freedom to, you know, get my ass kicked and do whatever I needed to do on my own time. But he was instructing me, like kind of what you say about like the jujitsu parents. The jujitsu parents, I find, are always my phone down.
Man down.
It's a mic down.
But the jiu-jitsu parents I find are always the ones who are super hands-on too.
Yeah.
Whereas who are always like, no, do the bump, put the elbow there, put your hand here instead of. And a lot of times I feel like just
Sometimes too much pressure.
let them do it. Just
Yeah.
let them be wrong for as long as they need to be wrong.
Yeah.
I think that's a big part of it too. Yeah, I think a lot of parents are very quick to like help their kid.
I never see this happen on the Joe Rogan show.
No, I'm sorry. They have a much better studio. Sorry.
Being a
When I sign a $100 million deal with Spotify, I'll hook you up, man.
I feel like the parents that train, unless they're on the mat, like we have a lot of our parents that their kids are involved in class, they'll step on the mat, they'll put their knee on, they'll help us out. Like
Right.
we've got a day there's 35 6 to 8 year olds, they'll hop on the mat, they'll help. And in that regard, they will coach, but I find the parents that train are the least likely to coach their kids.
Yeah.
When they're not.
They usually take a
directly on
step
the
So,
mat.
back.
so me, if that's the case, I'm thankful for that, because if you don't train, please just shut up.
Oh, yeah, 100%. That's the
Right?
worst.
And if a
Yeah.
parent's looking to come, I mean, again, in my opinion, I think if a parent wants to come on and help train, a parent who trains jujitsu is willing to come on and help, and they're actually capable of doing it.
Yep.
I'm much happier if they help someone else's child. and not
100%.
theirs.
And they tend to do that.
And
I
so
feel
that's,
like they.
yeah, that's a smart move.
I think they get it too. And most of them do. Most of the parents that are training jujitsu, they will most, unless there's a behavioral issue, most of the time they take a backseat into helping somebody else. And they allow me to spend,
Right.
which is great. And that's the best, because if I had, man, if you lived next door, 100% my kids would be training with you.
Right.
Like it's
Just
just
easier.
It's a different dynamic.
You train mine, I'll train yours.
100%, because they would look at it differently, I think. And you look at even, I was, we went to a Haja Gracie seminar last
Two weeks ago now.
couple weeks ago. Great seminar, and it was difficult to hear him. He was very soft spoken. It was a very, very loud, big venue.
Echoey venue,
Very,
yeah.
it was, that part of it was bad, but the content was phenomenal. And I think I asked the question, actually. I got to ask him a question, and I wanted to know, like, who was your main influences outside of your dad in jiu-jitsu? And he's like, well, I got all my belts from Carlos Gracie Jr. I trained under him. I always trained under him. And my cousin Helion as well. So, like, he's got this great relationship with his dad, and his dad was a Halls Gracie black belt, and King Kong, from what everybody says, very good. So what did he do? He put him
Put them in someone else's hands.
yes. And that, for me, that would be ideal. It's just difficult, right? Like, part of the thing for us is we like the activity as a family too. Like, it's almost like right now we have juniors, we have little champs, which is 3 to 5 year olds, then we have 6 to 8 year olds, and then 9 to 11 year olds on Monday, Wednesdays, and then on Tuesday, Thursdays we have the other age group like this. We have another 3 to 5 year old group and the teens class of 12 to 16 year olds. And so, like, we bring two crews of kids each time, but they get to be on the mat, they get to train. But it would absolutely be ideal if somebody else was the instructor, because
Yeah.
I'm always dad. I remember my daughter, my eldest daughter, her first class, She might have been 4 or 5 years old.
No, she was barely 3.
Really?
She started really early.
I didn't know we had that young a class. But so I brought her in, and she's
You're crazy for her.
I said, and she's like, call me dad. Like, Celia, can you call me Mr. Eastler during class? And she just looks up at me. No.
That's not the rule.
No, it's not happening. You're dad. Like, oh, okay, well, we know how this is gonna go.
Yeah, but I think it's an important
It's a different
distinction to
dynamic.
make. So like when I would take him, I don't have the size of the numbers you have, but when I took him, I really was, very hands off. And it was on purpose.
Yeah.
Because I get to be dad everywhere else.
Right.
And my wife would even sometimes, we'd go on vacation sometimes, and she coined the term. Like, we would go somewhere and she'd say, look, I don't wanna be a mom today. Can you just behave the way you're supposed to behave? Can we just all be adult in our own little way? And even to a 6-year-old, I don't wanna be mom today. So
Yeah.
and sometimes my kids kinda got it. And even me, I'm like, yeah,
How'd that
that's kind of a clever way to get it.
I wish that
We only had 2. And so in the school, I didn't wanna be dad,
Right.
and so I would be hands off, and I'd make sure he was with the people that I knew he could be entrusted to, and then I would jump in here and there and help with this or help with that, and not be too overbearing, because your kids always see you as overbearing, even
Sure.
when you're not. You have to be super hypersensitive to that.
Yeah.
And so that's part of the plan too. As far as the parents quitting jujitsu, I'm sure people might not kind of get that. But as a parent, let's say, I don't think parents who don't do jujitsu put the importance of the system and what needs to be done and what needs to be done over a long term in the right perspective. And so when I say parents quit jujitsu, what I mean is, I'm sure you're taking your kids to school, unless you homeschool, but you take your kids to school, you take your kids brush your teeth. There are plenty of things your kids have to do all the time that in your mind are kind of non-negotiable.
Right.
I don't want to go to school today. If I homeschool, I don't want to, well, nah, okay, guys, let's go brush our teeth, and we're doing it. So you don't quit taking your kids to school. Your kids want to quit every day.
Right.
Sure. Yep.
And so when the kids want to quit jujitsu,
Agreed.
you're quitting because you're not really putting the importance on it for the long term.
Yep.
And so one handy trick for the viewing audience who's ever watching, what I think is really helpful, in most kids' cases, you'll hear parents, and you've probably heard parents say it, yeah, it's a pain in the neck getting them here, but once they're here, they love it.
Yep. All the time.
And so and again, this was something given to me. It was
Especially
something-
now, devices and all that stuff.
Something I didn't create, but, so it's not that the kid doesn't want to go to jujitsu. What the kid doesn't want to do is stop doing what they're doing.
Right.
So you gotta trick them sometimes. So, if a half hour before you have to leave for class, they're on the Xbox or whatever, make them help you vacuum the living room, make them help you do the dishes. And then 15 minutes into doing the dishes, you feel like stopping this and going to jujitsu? All of a sudden, going to jujitsu is more exciting
Sounds
than
like
doing the
great.
dishes.
Sounds great.
Yeah, it sounds great. And so just changing the parameters sometimes really helps. And a lot of my parents have had a lot of success with that silly little thing of just, they don't want to not go. They're happy playing the game. So take them away from something they want to be taken away from.
For sure. Yeah, it's fascinating. I go back and forth and I struggle with it all the time because again, I want to be part of my kids' training, but at the same time, like you look at the Gracies, the ones who end up being, they're always training with their uncles or their cousins or whoever else, you know what I mean?
Right.
Now, granted, I think the stress level on them is different. And I've talked to, Huron about this before at length and how he felt about, not wanting to go because there's this stress and this pressure. So my kids don't have that pressure, but they still have the pressure that I'm dad. Like I'm the guy in the room. Like I may not be a Gracie, but I'm the head instructor here. And they don't want to look bad in front of the other kid. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
I'm sure there's stresses that
They feel
they're-
held to a higher
I'm
level.
sure they are. I'm sure there are stresses there that they don't they may not talk about. But
So you want to be part of the kids' training. Let me ask you this then. So the training, it encompasses many facets, right? If you had to pick one or two of those facets that you were part of their training that were more important than any other facet, which one would they be? Would you be the one teaching them basics? Would you be the one they're rolling with and playing with and having fun? Would you be the one that's there's many roles of the instructor
Right.
on the mat. Which are the one or two important ones for you
I
in your
think-
kid's life?
Well, I think both of the ones that you just described are important ones for me, but I feel like they need to be done at different times.
Okay.
So when they're younger, they've all been learning it before they knew they were. I mean, you know exactly what I'm talking
Again, he
about.
started at 10, but it was
Yes.
really 4.
Exactly. It was younger than that. Like you were playing around with him on the mat.
Mhm.
Like Same with my kids. Like, if I pull one of their legs across, they do the garbage retention drill perfectly. All of them. They know instinctively, their body's done it. Because I played with them. I moved their leg, I tickle the ribs, I move it, you know what I mean?
Right.
And so,
Tickles are not punch, but tickles are punches now.
yeah, that's right, yeah. So that part, that's always been fun. Even with the girls, like, we always had fun when they were young and just goofing around. And I think there's a lot of really positive benefits beyond just jujitsu about that connection, that wrestling around. There's a lot of there's a lot of benefit, right? And later on, like, yes, I really want them to know good. Of course, I'm biased. I'm going to teach them the best because, you know, I'm going to teach them the real stuff.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I want to teach them everything that I know.
You're all learning the real stuff.
Yes, yeah, all your kids are still learning the real stuff. I'm just saying, like, of course, if your son asks you a question, you're gonna answer that question as best you can.
You're
because
cutting right to the chase.
You have a different level of investment in that human. It's just reality. I mean, I love all the kids that I train, but they're not all my kids. Like, of course, I'm going to give that, but I don't want to be overbearing either. So it's tricky, you know.
Yeah, it's a balance, and it might be an ebb and flow
Yeah.
through even the personalities of the years.
Very, very much so. And, you know, sometimes there's, you know, you've got kids at certain times of their lives where you're just butting heads and you're trying to figure out how, oh my gosh.
Yeah,
I
maybe
really do want to
maybe it's time to hand them off for a little while then.
There you go, that's it. And for some, it's nice now that we have, you know, I used to teach all the kids' classes for the most part, but now we have some other folks that teach and they do a fantastic job. We've got Miss Allison, who you've met,
Yeah,
she
yeah.
does a great job with the kids. Mike McLean does an awesome job with, I mean, he's new and doesn't have any kids, but he
Great
does a
energy,
fantastic,
great
great energy, great with the kids, and, you know, he's, you know, like, my teenage boys, like, they're in his class more often than they are in mine now.
Good.
Which is good, like, you know, because do I still want to be, of course I still want to be involved, I still want to be, you know.
Well, it's an ebb and flow, and it's cyclical.
Yeah.
You know, like for a long time, he was training with other people and doing his thing, but there's times I'll come in the room and for a while, especially COVID. COVID
Oh,
was
yeah.
a disaster.
Yeah.
So I was doing classes with him and training with him, and I wasn't training with anybody else because
Right.
it was
You
with
couldn't.
COVID, you know, it's crazy. But then when that passed, that kind of became my habit a little bit. Then guys start getting jealous. Oh, you're not training Declan's out here? I'm not the special.
So how was that for you? Did you feel like you got more information out of your dad?
I got an elbow in my gut very often. But, no, I think
We saw that technique today.
Yeah, you saw it a few less times than I did. But I really started. I think I took jujitsu for granted for a long time, and then once I was only training with him, I really kind of understood like how important the connection was, because he's my father too. Like that's a big part of it.
Yeah.
Like that's part of jujitsu for me too. But yeah, that really changed a lot of like just training with the same person every day. It's like, and when it's your dad, it develops differently. I think. But
I think, was he an orange belt when I first met him?
I got my blue belt at the super seminar.
The super seminar, I got his blue belt. He was an orange
think
belt.
I was-
Yeah, I don't think he was pre-orange when you met him. He was already an orange belt. So
I was there a year before that though. Before the
Then he'd be an orange belt. Yeah,
Okay,
he
yeah.
never got
That's
green.
what I thought. I thought you were an
went
orange
to
belt.
blue.
Okay.
Yeah, I thought you were an orange belt when we first met, and I knew you were getting close to that age. You may have been 15 at the time, and then
Yeah, I think 16 is the blue belt, but then I have this kind of.
But you
model.
seemed so mature then. Like like
Well, he
you
might
were
have,
very
he might have been 16 and a half, but I won't do the belt at 16.
sure.
Because it's not a birthday present in
Right,
my
of
mind,
course,
right?
yeah.
And so if it takes you to 17 and you wear an orange belt, that's on you.
Yeah.
So I can't help you. But and he's always been a kind of mature soul in that sense, and in the room,
I've never met your daughter. I've met your wife, but you
Yeah,
you guys knocked it out of the park with
Yeah,
this
well,
one. So good job.
swing and a minute. Keep my eyes closed. Yeah, I can't take credit for that. That's all my wife's DNA. Yeah, my daughter, she started young too, but
Yeah.
she quickly hated it. She
She was better than me.
She used to beat them up when they were little. By the time she was, I think, 3, she probably knew most of Helson's defense. I couldn't hug her good night. She would do the hug defense, like every time I go, no defense. She put the arm up to defend. But she would learn it all. But then eventually, I'm getting bored.
Yeah.
But I think it's still, like, if I still mess around with her, she still has certain instinctive movements that, look, jiu-jitsu's a funny thing. I don't think it's something you have to learn so much about to do. it's so basic, kind of instinctive stuff anyway.
And mindset, not just
Yeah,
that.
absolutely.
But them knowing that they have the right to defend themselves. They have the, you know, let alone the confidence, right? But it's okay for me to, it's not okay for you to do what you're doing
I'm
to me.
supposed to, yeah.
I'm going to fight back. Just that alone, we know that, just from statistics.
Yeah.
Is, that alone, just fighting back in general, not even having much of a technique to begin with, gives the person a better chance, right?
And so I wonder what effect that has even like on your
Right.
kids, when you're going, every day you're coming here, whether they're interested or not, they know your world revolves, it kind of
I'm
seeps
not
through
even
the
sure.
cracks somehow,
I'm
right?
not even sure. I think Zaven said something to me one time when, like, he was talking about fighting at school, or somebody was picking on. I can't even remember what the situation was. This is so many years ago, and he didn't even equate the two together, right? Like fighting and jujitsu. Like, we're not supposed to fight. Like, no. What do you think I'm showing you? Like, I'm showing you this so that you know how to defend yourself if you need to. Like, it's okay to fight, right? I didn't even think. I just figured that was just natural. Like,
So you wonder.
yeah, because the conversations I'm having with the normal students, those aren't even that important, because for the most part, like, parents are bringing them here, like, hey, we're gonna go to jujitsu. You're gonna learn how to defend yourself. He was just doing jujitsu.
Right.
He almost didn't even equate it with fighting.
Well,
It was an interesting, like, kind of like, oh, light bulb moment. Like, oh wait, we gotta have some conversation here. son.
I changed how I treat the kids and what I talk about, and we very clearly talk, you guys are here, as ugly as it sounds, you're all here to learn how to fight, and the eyes drop, because I realized one day, he was little, and I decided when even my kids were little, because I was a little bit held back on my ability to defend myself or fight, because I get in trouble, fighting in school is bad, you know, you get in
Yeah.
trouble. And so I decided early on that if my kids ever got in a fight in school, ever, that the punishment would never overstep the bounds of why they were doing it and never get in the way. So I always say, hit back and ask questions later. Like, that was always my thing. So he was young once. I forget what grade, little, just a small kid, but young, but he's a stocky kid. He could take a punch, he could take a hit, he could crush light bulbs in his, you know, by his vanity.
I think that was more out of idiocy.
He would get, he would cry more from being
Man.
hurt, insulted. Like, you could hit him, he wouldn't cry, but if you told him you weren't his friend, he'd get upset.
Right.
And so something happened in school, and he's explaining, basically getting picked on. I said, hit the kid back. He said, look, you're not gonna get in trouble. Someone's picking, and I'd give you the typical, hit him back, and he came back from school a little bit upset, but I goes, so-and-so, he hit me. I said, what'd you do? I hit him back. I go, okay, what happened? He goes, he hit me back really hard. And I forgot to mention, oh yeah, that actually continued.
It may not stop there.
Left a few pieces of So it did kind of change my thinking on the whole script, to say, you know
Right,
what, there's
yeah.
a lot of storyline here that maybe.
And we take for
We don't
granted.
give them.
No, that's right. We think that it's just innate. Like, they just know. Like, yeah, go ahead and hit him back, you know?
Yeah.
But they don't.
I think the term self-defense has become so cliched.
Yeah, oh, absolutely.
I don't like it.
Oh, and of course, the zero tolerance policies, which are just absolutely abhorrent.
Yeah.
You know, I think that's what started the conversation, because my son was like, but I'll get in trouble. No, I'm gonna take you for ice cream, man. Like, you know, you gotta defend yourself. That's more important. Like, look, school's here. That's their authority. Dad's here. You know what I mean? Like, you need to listen to me. And like, yeah, if they send you
Well,
home, I'll take you out for ice cream.
And even to
As long as
teach
you're doing the
kids-
right thing.
Even to teach kids and parents that, because I think the parents, I let
Yes.
the parents sit and watch the class. I don't chase them out, because I want them to hear. Sometimes the speeches I'm giving to the kids are really for the parents.
Yeah.
And the kids need to understand, look, you know, you're under certain establishments like school and work and different things, and of course they're governing bodies and communities you're in. But we each and every one of us have a certain value system that your parents are raising you in a certain set of values.
Right.
And those values should never be allowed to be trampled on by someone else's authoritarian place. That's not a big word, but yeah, if school says no, you know, zero tolerance on fighting, and your parents have a principle of, no, you are not allowed to be picked on, you stand up for yourself.
Right.
Then you have to learn to actually, that's a resistance you have to learn to actually exercise.
Yes.
And so, it's conversations parents need to have with the kids and on different angles. Like I said, I left some blanks out on it, you know.
Yeah.
He hit me really hard.
But you figured it out.
Yeah, eventually.
You know, it's funny, you talk about growing up in a different world than the Grace. It was an interesting conversation with him to have, maybe. So, we grew up, me and you, in this new world of the Gracie system, and you know, blue belts didn't even exist, never mind meeting a purple belt.
Right.
So it is a funny concept, because some of my students are laughing about, oh, isn't it great growing up like Declan? When he's
Right.
going for his first tournament, you know, again, we've, you know, not to name drop, but we've met a few of the
Yeah,
Gracies,
yeah,
we've
yeah.
been friends
I
with
meant
them.
to add, I'm glad you brought it up.
Yeah, we've made friends with them, and over a few seminars with Hicks, and we've become close, and we've hung out with him in California. And so for his first tournament, I think he was just turning 16. He was going to the adult division, never competed, so I knew he had a rough road ahead of him.
No,
It was gonna be-
16's rough, man. Going in against grown men.
Yeah, I
that's not
think I was
easy.
probably like 170 at the time, and I was going up against like a 35-year-old.
Yeah,
It was
and
like,
he's a late December baby, so
A
it's
grown-
like, you know,
grown man, yeah.
moms get that when he's young. So I just think on a whim, hey, you know what, let me cash in on some of my chips. So I call Hicks, and hey, Hicks, would you mind if my kid called you for some advice in the tournament? He goes, oh man, absolutely. Because if I don't pick up, tell him to keep calling, because I might be busy. And so I go, I'm gonna be cool, Dad, now. Hey, Dad, you wanna call Hicks up for some tournament advice? And he makes the phone call.
How was it?
it was, I was shaking the whole time.
I'm sure, yeah.
I don't even know what to ask. I was like, what do you even ask somebody about your first tournament? Like, what submission do I go for? Like, you don't. It's like, what do you
Sure,
ask? It's
yeah.
like, what should I think I don't remember specifically what I asked. I was just trying, like, what should I be like expecting from this? Like, I would like to win, but like, I think I could lose. He was like, just going, just, it's an experience. Like, that's just, it's your first tournament.
Says the guy who's never lost.
Yeah, I know, right? 300-0. Right now I'm 0-1.
Yeah.
No, but he was just like, just going, just experience it, and it was just, he just, I was kind of building up in my heart. I was like, oh my God, it's a tournament, like I don't want. He's like, who cares if you lose? Like you, and then someone else told me later on, one of his friends, like, you decide when your record matters. Like when you actually want to compete, everything before that, like kind of, it helps to become like what you want to be, but don't think about that. Just go out and do it, and that was important with Hicks.
That's awesome.
It was cool.
It's-
So after the phone call, I asked him, you know, do you think he was, because I didn't know, I left him alone, I didn't listen to the call, but they were on the phone for a half hour, 40
Wow.
minutes, it was a long time. Well, I said, you know, this, you know, it was cool, yeah. I said, well, you know, did you thank him at least? And he said, no, he goes, he actually thanked me. Thank you. And it's again, like, sometimes you wonder what people hear is important or not. What I'm hearing from the call, I said, well, do you think he was sincere? He says, no, because I told him, I'd given you the same advice I would give Crone and blah, 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 blah. But I'm hearing the words.
Yeah.
And I know the story of, you know, the history of the family, and he's saying stuff like, I'm giving you the same advice I would give Crone. Now I'm wondering is, did he ever have a chance to give Crone this experience? What was their relationship like? Like, where do you access people's databases and their emotions?
Sure.
And then they'd say, look, so you think he was sincere? He said, no, he told me to call him back next week after the tournament. I'm like, what? He goes, yeah, he wanted to know how I did, but, you know, like, wow, that's really kind of cool. So it's really cool. Again, not to say, oh, Hicks and Gracie,
Sure,
but
yeah,
there's
yeah.
a couple of cool stories with Hoist and bringing him around the Gracies and different people.
It's-
Guys like you who just take the responsibility of someone's child
Yeah.
being brought to you, and they know the weight of that and the importance of it.
And it's remarkable to me that a guy like Hickson, or Helson for that matter, can have such like insightful advice for the average person, because they were so far removed from average.
Oh, yeah, no doubt.
Especially those two, like on a different planet. But they actually have some of the best advice in those scenarios, which, you know, you kind of think, well, that's not how they think, but
It's how they, you know, and somehow they've met that road.
yeah.
But just like we've met the road to get to the Gracie lineage and get to what they don't understand, they've come the other way a little bit sometimes.
Yeah, not that that's not how they think, it's just not how we think that that's how they think.
Right.
Like, that's, wow, these guys are the best ever. Like, oh, just go out and have fun.
Yeah.
Really? Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
That's good to know.
Do you remember the frog in the water story with Hoist?
No.
Yeah, so again, I think it's just great when these guys, and this is why I love these people so much, and I'll have my kids around these guys. So I bring him to a seminar with Hoist. At this point, the yellow belt. He's young, maybe he's, I don't know,
11, 13, I think.
11, 12 years old, something like that. And so Hoist is always ingratiating and fun, and, you know, I know him a long time, always making, you know, we have a playful relationship. But again, taking the responsibility of what we're doing, we're talking About people in general in the martial arts and different behaviors, like, maybe he's smoking pot or whatever.
Yeah.
And his position on that. And he turns to him, he ignores me now, and goes right to him and starts talking to him as a 12-year-old, like it's one-on-one. He says, yeah, the problem with it is, I don't necessarily have a problem with the behavior, the power. He goes, it's just, I think there's a certain responsibility people should have, and the way they present things, and they seem to be like they're no big deal. It's like putting a frog in boiling water. If I throw a frog in boiling water, it's gonna jump out immediately, it knows there's something wrong.
Right.
But if I put a frog in nice cool water and put a little flame on it, and the flame gets a little water hotter, but eventually the frog just dies from because the change happened so slowly you didn't recognize it.
Right.
And that's the problem.
Yeah.
People don't see the little changes. And here he is, he's giving this kid a life lesson that he's forgotten now, but we've talked about it a lot since that.
Sure, yeah.
But the point is, to take the responsibility as Hoyce Gracie, UFC champion, at the end of a 200-person seminar, casually hanging out, deciding to share a philosophy and a moral lesson with my 12-year-old son. I mean, I just love the responsibility and the
Yeah.
care that they take in what they're choosing to pass on.
Yeah.
Because he could have told them any story in that 10 minutes.
Of course.
Right?
Yeah. And it's all, and Helson is as wild as he is, he is sometimes extremely insightful. And it's remarkable sometimes. And honestly, I could be totally off on this. I'm gonna ask her, but I'm pretty convinced that I have him to thank for her being a blue belt right now.
Wow.
Because
I'm looking at the look on her face.
because she felt some pressure. Like
I was embarrassed.
we took
Like,
a
he
we
would
took a
come-
picture.
Yeah.
We took a picture, family picture. I'm gonna get all the kids together. You've probably seen it. It looks like a
Oh,
party.
yeah, it's a great shot.
So it's like I wanted to get a picture with all the kids and the geese and everything, and so
And I don't want to be in the picture.
she doesn't want to be in the picture, but but
Right.
it's the family, and they need somebody to hold the baby. Come on, hold the baby. Sorry, it's terrible.
So,
I think I held
yeah.
the baby, but
No, so he makes me put the gi on.
it's just,
And
and he
and
looks
white
But you
belt.
weren't training at that point.
No, I wasn't training. I mean,
a
I wasn't
little.
actively training. Like, I mean, I've been around it for as long as we've been together, but, no, wasn't actively training, and he gave Robin a hard time.
It's like, hey, why she's not blue belt? I'm like, ask her. I don't know. I don't know. She's not ready.
Well,
And
that's
it was
funny.
pretty shortly after that we started doing regular private lessons. 'Cause I
Look
was
at
like,
that, Helson Gracie.
And then next thing you know, she meets a couple ladies, or there's a couple ladies that you just met. You met one of them today.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Natalie, yeah. And Natalie comes in, and she brings another two friends with her, so they start class, and they're close to the same age, and they live close to our where we live, like up north. And I was like, you should really meet these new ladies that are just starting. They're pretty nice. Just trying to. Look, next thing you know, they're like best friends.
The
You
new
know what I mean?
Brooklyn Club, yeah.
They're all training jiu-jitsu together, and smashing each
Look
other's
at that.
faces.
Helson Gracie. Yeah, he's an interesting character. I mean, when it's funny, he was little. I mean, I opened my school in '99.
99. Wow.
Yeah, November, it's like a month before he was born. So my daughter was already running around the mats a little bit, 2
Were
years
you
old.
blue belt then, or purple yet?
4-stripe blue.
4-strip blue.
And so yeah, '99, I think I got my purple, not long after.
Isn't that remarkable though? Like, I look back now.
Yeah.
There's more purple
Well,
belts.
right, that I
there's-
have.
There's
But-
more
but
purple
again-
belts in our academy than we're in the country. When we started, it's
Easily.
ridiculous. It's crazy. In the
Easily
country,
more. Yeah.
like we knew their names. Like if
Right.
you were a purple belt, you were
I knew
professional.
one.
Yeah.
Steve Maxwell.
Yeah,
That
he was
it.
the only guy on the East Coast that I was aware of. And, like, brown belts were mythical creatures. They were slaying dragons in
They
Brazil or
didn't
something.
exist.
Yeah, I mean, I can't remember when I first saw a brown belt. It was either Gracie
remember.
or it was blue belts. I mean, I moved here to train, and Jeff was a 2-stripe blue belt at the time. I uprooted my life. Like, yeah, that's the guy that knows all this stuff. I gotta go there. And
And where else are you gonna go?
right. I mean, online.
Oh, yeah.
There was-
But that didn't exist online.
No, none of that was.
You had the Gracie tapes, you could do the VHS tapes.
Right.
You get your free t-shirt.
I remember going to the local bookstore, like, no, sorry, it was a Hallmark store, but they had a magazine rack. remember going in there like every 2 days, like any new martial arts
Magazine?
magazine. Yeah, it's like,
You'd clip out the moves, you're
Yeah.
kind of learning the technique, it's kind of funny. Yeah, but you look back sometimes, like the House of Grace thing is funny to me about even his humanity and the way he was,
Yeah.
like, so when he was little, he would come over, bounce, every time he came, he'd have macadamia nuts, chocolate,
yes, she
Those were
loved
the
them.
best.
She used to love those.
he'd have like the
She's
little
so
baby.
upset he doesn't bring them
playing
anymore.
jiu-jitsu on the thing, but he was so respectful, like people,
Yeah,
you know, again,
yeah.
the wild side
Very
Helson.
much.
I remember him once hiding magazines. I
Yeah.
mean, what do you bring to my house? Mike, I got the kids. I see on top it says Ring. It's Ring. It's Ring magazine, like a
Yeah.
boxing magazine. And in the little corner, there's like a picture of
Yeah.
a ring card
Ring
girl,
girl.
like in a bathing suit, like nothing. The kids can't see this. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
like super respectful. And I think on one of the first or second seminars he came over, it's kind of funny. He was for a whole weekend, say Saturday, Sunday. He was leaving Tuesday, and I had class on Monday. So I went and taught class. He wanted to come on Monday to teach. I said, you stay home, relax. So I go home, teach. I come back. When I come home, he jumps off the couch. My wife is gone for the week. He jumps off the couch. Sit down, I got dinner ready. How do you like your steak? So, what's going on? He went shopping. He got a piece of butter in the pan, ready to go. He already made some beets. He steamed or whatever he did. He sliced them all up in the fridge, cold. The table's set. Come on, I got a beer for you. Hands me a beer. I go to get up and do something. You worked hard all day. He said, what are you, married? I worked hard all day. I like my steak soft. He throws 2 steaks in the pan. He makes a whole dinner. Calls me out when it's ready to eat. I try to help him clean. He won't help me clean. I cannot help him clean. I'm in the living room. Guys, inside, have another beer. You relax. And all of a sudden, I hear this racket. I come out. The stove is opened up. He completely cleaned my kitchen like I've never cleaned it before. He throws some banana peels in the recycle can, metal can. So I go, he sees me react. What? I said, no, he wouldn't let me. What? He sees the banana. They don't go down. I said, well, they really pushes me away. He grabs the banana. I was like, my family isn't this good over my house. Like,
Yeah.
he just went soup to nuts, just couldn't be nicer. And that's the Helson, like, in a
Yeah.
funny way, toughest man in the world, that I got to see so many times. Like, this just really super caring, considerate guy.
And really just, he's a really good cook.
Fantastic.
He's a phenomenal cook.
Corn soup, stuff
People
I've never
don't
heard
know.
of.
People don't realize, like, unless he cooked, he's a phenomenal cook. Some of the best eating I've ever had in my life, I went down for a weekend to spend in Austin. Me and him and Danny Moraes were staying at Phil Cardell's house, and Phil's a great cook as well.
Right.
And those two, it was like a competition of who could. And I never ate so good in my life. It was amazing. The healthy food. I mean, oh man.
Hey, the original Iron Chef.
But I was so intimidated to first meet him because I met Hoist first. And when I met Hoist, I think it was my first Hoist seminar might have been right after. He was the first Gracie I met. And of course, he was my hero because he just,
Sure.
saw him beat Dan Severn.
was Gracie.
He was amazing, right? And I went to a seminar and he walked in the room and it was like, he stared at every single person. And it was like, not a friendly stare. It was like, who's gonna try to fight me today? Oh man, and he was nice. Like he sat down next to us, so I was stretching next to him. Of course, I'm a young man and I'm sitting next to my idol. I mean, you could have, if it was basketball, that was Michael Jordan. Like I'm playing ball with Michael Jordan, you know what I mean? Like I was so intimidated by it. And so, not too long after that, Helson came to town, and I'd heard all the stories. Oh man, in the street, Helson's the guy.
Yeah.
He's the guy. That's the guy who's got it's the best street fighter in the family. That was what was always kind of,
That was the
it's
sell.
common
That was the
knowledge.
sell, yeah.
Everybody said, and I don't doubt that one bit. And by most people's accounts, it's absolutely true. So I'm expecting something similar. I walk in the door, and the first time you hear his voice, especially back then, it's like way different than Hoist. He sounds like the devil himself. He's got this raspy but he was nice as could be, like super like jovial and like, hey, my friend, how are you? And I'm like, duh. And it's the first time because he just gotten his master's belt or whatever. So I'm like, Hoist wasn't a master. He just had a black belt. Like so. I knew that it was a master's belt, and I said, but am I supposed to should I bow to you?
Should I
or
kneel?
Do I? No, yeah, I was like, I didn't know. I was like, how do I refer to you? Do I call you? I was pretty certain that I wasn't supposed to bow to him, but I was asking, how do I refer to you? Should I call you master? And he just looked at me like, oh, put his hand. He's like, my name's Elson. You show me respect by showing up to my class, And I was like, wow, this is totally different.
Yes, every other martial art you heard of.
Yeah, I mean, it was wild, but you got a sense that he was so like relaxed and comfortable, and you could sense it. You could sense that guy. He's not afraid of no one in the room.
No.
He's comfortable in his skin. I mean, it's just, crazy.
Yeah, it's good stuff. It's good stories. I tell you, I see a lot of people now that Hickson's coming out in the woodwork.
Yeah.
And I got all
It's
the
phenomenal.
respect in the world for Hickson.
Absolutely, yeah.
I've been to a few seminars, and he's like we've discussed. He showed me some stuff that has been life changing for my jujitsu.
Me too.
And I hate to hear. I hate when some people say, "Well, if only I met Hickson, 20 years ago," and blah blah blah. But I think, honestly, I wouldn't trade my experience with Helson for anybody.
Meaning,
Helson, I think Helson's approach to fighting has always been a bar none. It's an insane perspective
and he
a
never held
viewpoint.
anything back from us.
Oh no.
They showed us everything. You ask a question, and it was always.
And what he
simplest-
showed you worked. There wasn't built-in failures to teach the next step.
No.
Like if he showed me to do this and this, it worked on everybody.
And it
I
was
don't care what level they were. I might not do the next thing right,
sure.
but whatever I did that he told me to do,
Yeah.
it worked on everybody.
And it was-
Black belt, didn't matter.
It was the simplest answer.
Oh yeah,
Always the simplest answer, and it always worked.
it's amazing. It's
And like a
absolutely
computer.
amazing.
Click.
Oh, he mad
What about
scientists
this?
like that.
Boom, done, right there.
Mad scientists like that.
Yeah.
You show him one technique, if he didn't figure it out right there, in seconds, do it again, and it just didn't work anymore. Yeah, it's been a privilege to be under him.
Yeah.
It's gonna be sad to watch us all grow old.
Yeah.
But I'm glad we're all growing old together.
Yeah.
He's becoming a different guy in the mat, but still in the mat is funny.
Yeah,
What,
we
was it 10
didn't
years
didn't
of
start the
how old is he
whole.
now?
He's 68. He's exactly 22 years older than me.
Yeah, but I
We
tell
share the
you,
same
on the
birthday.
mat, he's still, it's
68.
like, wow, it's like, the universe comes through him on the mat still. It's just,
Yeah.
yeah, he's something. He's something special on this planet for sure.
Yeah. And we didn't start the Jiu Jitsu Lifestyle podcast to talk about Helson all the time, but
Oh,
it just
not to.
happens to be. That's right. That's our experience. He's our teacher. I mean, it's and that's our reference. You know what I mean? I'm really grateful for that. He's up there.
There you go.
Right there.
Right next to Bob.
Yep, right next to Bob, with no head.
Bob, two-time champion.
Yeah.
You can't choke him, that's the problem. That's why he wins everything.
No neck. All right. Well, I think I've probably exhausted your time. I mean, you and I could
Yeah,
talk.
we can
for
go on
days.
all
We
day.
all-
That's
we
no
always do.
problem.
We always do. So we should
We're
probably
gonna,
shut this
we're
down.
gonna put a man to deck on to sleep, that's the.
I know, right? That's the problem. Yeah. Well, thank you guys for joining us. It was really cool to hear your perspective. I've heard these, me and your dad, we're on the phone all the time, so this is nothing new for us. But I think it's interesting and fun. I think for our viewers and listeners to kind of hear your perspective and where you started. Also, hearing your perspective is good for me. You know what I mean? As a dad who teaches and.
All right, so let's, before you sign up, let's just ask this maybe. So as a kid who's still kind of close to his roots of the frustrations and all of that, is there something that he might recommend for the parents out there to get the kids involved? What is the turn on, turn off? What's the wow factor to bring your kid in?
Yeah, the wow factor.
A wow factor. What's one thing to do or not to do?
I feel like you guys kind of covered most. I mean, there's probably something I'm forgetting, but like, just no pressure. Just let it be fun. Just like, jujitsu's fun to me more than anything. You know what I mean? Like, it was fun because I was allowed to have fun doing it. So like, let your kid have fun with it, I guess. That's probably a simple answer, but
Yeah.
I think with anything that's important, just let your kid grow into it on their own. And if you put them through it for a while, maybe your kid's in jiu-jitsu for 2 years and they're just not into it. Maybe they're just not in jiu-jitsu. I don't know. It's not.
But if they
Or
last 2
maybe
years,
not that time.
Right.
but if they last 2 years in your school, you had a kid from 12 to 14, I did 2 years, I can't do anymore. Have they benefited?
Right. They,
Fully, yeah,
They
yeah,
get
I mean,
fully. Have they
they
benefited
they've
enough?
definitely benefited. for
Should
sure.
they have come for 2 years or not come at all?
Definitely, definitely.
Okay,
Something-
definitely come.
Some is better than none. Like, but I also remember as a kid, I took 5 years of piano lessons.
Mm.
I can't
You play
play piano.
chopsticks?
Yeah, I could muddle through it. No, I did learn some fundamentals of music that translated to, and it wasn't that I wasn't musically inclined. I'm fairly musically inclined.
You should see him
But,
dance.
yeah. Oh, God. No, you don't want to see me dance. So I think there was some value there.
Okay.
That translated in later on into like playing saxophone. Like I played saxophone in high school and I liked that. I actually enjoyed playing. I didn't really like band and all that stuff, but I liked playing the instrument. And so I think there was a lot of crossover that was beneficial, but I can't play piano very well at all.
Yeah.
And and part of it was because I was pushed into it. I was made to do it. So I think about that, I'm like, man, but at the same time, I'm grateful my mom made me stick with something. As dumb as that is, maybe it was a waste of money for her. I don't know, but I don't know if it's a positive
Yeah,
or negative. But
Well, it's interesting that, right, so the pushing part's
so
never a good
the
thing.
job for me as an instructor, or us as instructors, is to make it accessible and fun for the child when they get here, right?
Right.
That's our job.
And so that's the part I would challenge
Yeah.
as far as the difference, it doesn't kind of quite connect, although
Maybe not.
the analogy's good.
Yeah.
When you were with the music teacher, it's likely all you were learning was the piano and music.
Yes.
Were you learning any
And I-
crossover lessons or
Probably
conversations?
not. No, and I'm pretty sure they knew
So-
I didn't like it either.
Well, let's get out of
So
here.
I'm not sure that they were very, you know what I mean? Like,
They're
how
not
enthused are you
enthusiastic.
gonna be as an instructor? You know, you teach the class today and you feed off the students because like, oh, that's awesome, right? You get a charge out of that as an instructor. Like, man, they've never seen that before. Like, that's really cool.
Right.
You know, and then it does.
And in some way, you can find, at least there's some.
There's a
moments, I
relationship
think,
there.
You can find something on the mat to keep the kid interested. Like they look forward to
Yes.
dodgeball, or they
Yeah.
look forward to the game.
Yeah.
And then, like you said, later on, they don't look forward to that so much to jujitsu. So there are
Right.
different elements here to keep them interested, I think, at least,
And that's our job. Like, we have to figure that
Bang on
out.
the carrot
Every kid-
somehow.
Yeah. And so, yeah, I don't know. I think,
yeah, I'm a big vote on yes, 2 years is better than nothing.
yes,
Without a
absolutely,
doubt.
absolutely.
6 months is better than nothing.
Yeah.
I heard
Because
A
6
lifetime
months-
would be better,
Well, but a
but you're right.
lifetime won't start without 6 months.
And not just that, but I think that there's certain things like, for example, you training jujitsu, it's like, the way I try to explain it is like language.
Mhm.
Elson will always have an accent, but his son sounds like a Native American speaker as well as a native Portuguese speaker.
Yeah.
Right? Why is that? Because they learned it they started learning at an age that now they don't have an accent, right? So I think that trigger for that I think is puberty. So I have a student who came over here when he was 12 years old from Poland. His sister was 14. She has an accent. He speaks perfect English.
Wow.
Yeah, I had friends like that in middle school. From
And-
England, older one,
Yep.
you know, full accent, younger one. full
So
accent.
the way I look at that in a way is that, like you said before, like you wouldn't do another class the rest of your life. 80 years old, you could do a shrimp roll. Like, you don't have a jujitsu accent.
Right.
We'll always
Okay.
have, like, and that's a testament to the art, in my opinion,
That's-
because
yeah, okay.
for you and I to actually be able to play with the people that we've played with and be on the mat, that's a testament to jiu-jitsu.
Right.
For us to be, now, are we beating world champions? No, I wouldn't, but I could, you know.
We're in the
Man,
game.
yes,
We're
we're
not
in the game.
embarrassing ourselves.
No, absolutely not. Me going out and, you know, not right now, 47, but you know what I'm saying? Like,
And
when I was
not for
coming up,
nothing, for where you are right now, there's a
I
thing or two you
competed
can
at the
teach
highest
them.
level of.
But even
of
beyond
jiu-jitsu.
competition, if you sat here and had a master class with them.
Of course.
You could contribute as much or more to a room.
Oh,
than they could.
definitely, yeah.
So there you go, I mean.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's a testament to the art and obviously to our instructor as well. Like, look, we had very good training. Like,
Well,
it's,
And don't remove yourself from
I'm
the
not
coach.
removing
So-
that at all. Like, I'm a product of mostly of my lead instructor, Jeff Hudson, who spent probably more time on the mat with Helson than any.
He's accredited with doing more privates with Helson than anybody else.
Yeah, and he was a phenomenal student first, and then a great teacher as well. And obviously, I got more and more experience and more exposure to Helson because of him. And you know, he took me under his wing, and that was, and I love this stuff so much that I paid attention to everything. And if there, I remember specific things, like I learned that this day on the, you know what I mean? Like there's certain things that I don't remember there's certain things that I'll never forget when I learned it. When, yep, all of it. I mean,
Sometimes the way the room smelled.
yes.
Details, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Or just seeing him do something. Like, oh, I remember, I'll never forget that. And I don't know. Here we go. We're talking.
There you go.
Yeah. Probably a good time to end.
One eternity later.
That's right. That's right. Well, thanks for
That's my
joining us,
SpongeBob reference.
folks, live online on YouTube. We'll have this on YouTube as well. The audio won't be as nice, but you guys if you're listening to this now and it sounds nice and sexy, it's probably on
Somewhere on the Barry
iTunes
Manilow.
or
Here we go.
Spotify or something. So
Barry
anyway,
White. I say Barry Manilow. Barry White. Barry White.
anyway, thank you guys so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Yeah, it was an absolute pleasure.
That's fun.
It was just good to sit down.
Always great having you here.
Yeah, we love you guys. So anyway, that's it. We're out.
See you.
We're still live on there.
Hey, you get the behind the scenes stuff.
Yep.
My
All
first
two people
podcast.
online.
You got
Thanks for
stuff
joining
all
us.
together.
I know. It was fun.
There was 4.